Well, it's so funny over the years, ever since the Andy Kaufman thing. Andy was so good at what he did when he got involved with wrestling that probably the number one question I've been asked over the years is what was Andy Kaufman really like? What kind of guy was Andy Kaufman, or did you really like Andy Kaufman? And I tell people the truth of the matter was, I got along with Andy. And I thought Andy was a cooler guy than I ever did with Jim Carrey during the movie. Andy was just, I mean, Andy was really a sweet, humble guy, loved the wrestling business. And he was so great at what he did when he was on the shows. I mean, he just made the people despise him. He was so good at playing the bad guy. And that's the way Andy described it. He said, I love to play the bad guy. And so then when we did the movie with Jim Carrey, and that's how this whole Netflix movie came about. For 80 days of shooting that movie at Universal, Jim Carrey became, or in his mind, he became Andy Kaufman, except he wasn't. Well, maybe he was. I don't know. I don't know if he was. You'll understand it more when you see the movie. I guess to him, he was playing the bad guy, but to everyone else around him, he was just being a bad guy. And so I didn't really get along with Jim Carrey all during the shooting of the movie. I didn't like Jim Carrey, and so I didn't even realize that all of this behind the scenes footage was even being shot at the time. But it was all shot, and now they've put it together in a movie form and documentary form. And as you said, it's been sold to Netflix. And it's premiering on November 17th. And I got a chance to go up when I was up for SummerSlam in New York. They brought me over to the Vice headquarters, and they screened the movie for me personally up there. And that was, I got to see the whole movie already. And it's amazing to see. And especially, I mean, naturally it's mostly about Jim Carrey, and it's Jim Carrey of today with the big beard and this strange look and all of this sort of stuff. And I really, in watching that movie, you really need to see it, because I think that when Jim Carrey got so deep into the character of Andy Kaufman and playing the character of Andy Kaufman, I really believe that changed Jim Carrey's life. And I think he talks about that during this movie. I believe it made a totally different person out of from the person that Jim Carrey was before he started filming this movie. And it's really interesting. And there's so much of it. So much of the movie is about the interaction that Jim and I had during, while we were shooting the Andy Kaufman wrestling scenes and the David Letterman scenes and all of that sort of stuff. So it's really interesting. And a lot of people have wondered, basically, hey, whatever happened to Jim Carrey? Where is he? Kind of fell off the face of the earth. Well, this all explains it, and you can see exactly what's going on with Jim Carrey now. But November 17th on Netflix. It's called Jim and Andy: The Great Beyond.
There you go. Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it on Netflix, just because I'm a huge, obviously a fan of yours, but also Andy Kaufman and the whole Man on the Moon movie. How much? Well,
wait, I got to go back and say I got to say that actually. The real title, because we've been talking about getting names right with Rosenberg, Rosenbaum, and all of this sort of stuff. The real name, the real title, the official legal title of the movie is Jim and Andy: The Great Beyond, with a special obligatory appearance by Tony Clifton. That's part of the title.
I know.
A special obligatory appearance by Tony Clifton. Because the Tony Clifton character played a major part in the movie and in Andy's life. And so I guess what happened was that all of this footage, when they found it, was actually owned by Bob Zmuda. Bob Zmuda was, of course, Andy's friend and co-writer. And a lot of the times, Bob Zmuda would put on the makeup and play the character Tony Clifton when Andy and Tony wanted to be seen at the same time. If it was Bob Zmuda as Tony Clifton, other times it was Andy as Tony Clifton. So apparently when they shot when they put all this footage together and made the movie, they did it sort of without the consent of Bob Zamuda. And when they came to him and said, "Hey, we want to put this thing out," I think Bob said, "Okay, well, here's all I want. I don't want any money. I don't want anything except to be in the title, the name Tony Clifton to be in the title." So that's how it came about that there's a special obligatory appearance by Tony Clifton.
It's gonna be great.
Which is kind of cool. It really is. It's really interesting to watch.
Of course, if you're new to the podcast or just listen to the previous shows, a few recently, you can go back and listen to many episodes that we kind of detailed the whole Jerry Lawler versus Andy Kaufman feud with audio clips and some commentary from yourself. So those are past episodes of the podcast that you can listen to if you want to get your full scoop of what happened between Jerry Lawler and Andy Kaufman.